Welcome back to Nightly Nonsense, where we try to make some sense out of nonsense.
I've got a lot of nonsense.
Jason is with me again, and we're going to talk about some things that just don't make sense, but try to make some sense out of it. We live in a culture that's messed up. We've just been talking about that, right? We spend, unfortunately, a lot of time down here talking about things that just don't make sense, things that are just off, right? And one of the things that used to just be a staple of our culture was, hey, if you give somebody your word, if you make a vow, right? If you say, hey, I'm going to do this, you did it. You just did it. And if you didn't do it, you just took responsibility for it. And it's up to the other person as to whether they forgive you and you move on or not. But it was a super simplistic thing in life. You either did what you said you were going to do, or you didn't. And there are a lot of agreements, a lot of things that happen in life that happen just off of a handshake. Just of a, you said you were going to do it. Well, that led me to Judges, right? In one of my favorite stories in Judges. My first one is Ehud, left-handedness, right? I love that. I'm not left-handed, but I love the story. But the story of Jephthah, right? Jephthah is somebody who made a vow to God. Right? He was asked to lead the Israelites into battle. He was going to save Israel from the oppression that they were under. But before he went out, he made a vow to God saying, hey, if you give me the victory, I will sacrifice the first thing that walks out of my house to you. Right? Now, again, we could look at it and we could say, that's really stupid. God probably shouldn't hold you to that, because that is a really, really dumb thing to say, right? But in the story, he gets the victory, he goes home, and his daughter is the first person that comes out of his house, and he just breaks down, and he says, like, hey, listen, here's the vow I made, and she is crazy. She literally says, you got to keep your word. So give me 2 months with my friends to mourn that I'm not going to be a mom, I'm not going to have kids, not going to get married, all that stuff. And then go ahead, and they do it. And God holds them to that whole thing, right? Now, there's lots of stuff in this story to talk about. But what I want to get your take on is, do you see the same thing that I'm seeing on a regular basis, which is people telling us, giving us their word, telling us they're going to do something or they're about something, and then just not keeping their word?
Yeah, all the time. And, I mean, we all do it to an extent, unfortunately. But again, our response to when we don't keep our word is what really, really matters. Like you're saying, that a lot of people don't take responsibility anymore, and we need to.
So in our culture today, that is super reactionary in nature, right? We sit down with a group of people, and within 5 minutes, we're talking about politics. We're talking about school stuff, cultural stuff that just boils people inside. So we get very animated about things, right? But we also live in this world where we love to promise the world to other people, and we just simply can't deliver, right? So how do we look at this whole thing and say, all right, I want to be a man, a woman of integrity, a kid of integrity, right? I need to be careful about what I'm saying and what I'm promising.
Don't promise. I know that's hard. It's really hard because people want us to promise. But I think that, for me, I do make promises, but rarely. I need to be able to guarantee that it will be done. Usually it's something really simple that I promise. Yeah. So that way I can do it right away and get it out of the way. Otherwise, I'll say, I'll do my best.
So I love that. I love the intentionality about words, right? The intentionality is, hey, I don't want to get in trouble. So rather than promise you I'm going to be there, I'm just going to tell you I'm going to do my best to be there. Right? Which makes I want to be there, right? But I'm not sure. I'm not sure how the day goes.
Because things come up. Unfortunately, I could promise. I could promise to go to a friend's play, but then a family member gets sick and needs my help.
Yep.
I made that promise. I need to be there. Your yes be yes and your no be no. Absolutely. I need to be there. But my family member really needs help. What do? I should probably still go to the play, but at the same time, I'm getting conflicted thinking about this, because I could see how I need to do both. I'm sure that the person I made the promise to will understand why I can't be there, but I still made a promise,
So
and it still hurts.
Do you think sometimes we're making promises assuming that other people will understand if we can't do it?
I think so, but that doesn't mean it's right to make that promise.
No, but we make them with a confidence that, like, hey, if this doesn't work out, right? My nieces ask me all the time to be at things for them, right? Or they'll mention it to me. And, initially mine would be like, oh, yeah, I can be there, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then something happens and you can't be there, right? So now you're being a uncle that doesn't keep his word, right? So now it is more of like, listen, I don't know what it holds, but I would love to be there if I can be there, right? But there's an intentionality that I need to take a step back and not react, and I need to say, all right, listen, right? I'm going to do this if I can.
Mm-hmm. It's the intentionality is so important, just in life.
Yeah.
The intentionality of caring for people,
Mm-hmm.
the intentionality in praying. So many times where I used to say, yes, I'll pray for that, but then I'd forget.
Yep.
It's not that I wanted to, I just did. But I need to be intentional to pray there and intentionally maybe write it down. I have a journal in my phone that I write prayers down because otherwise I will forget. I know myself well enough to know I will forget, so I had to become intentional because my weakness was my memory.
I love what you just said there, right? Yeah. So again, if we're going to make promises, then we need to be intentional about, hey, I better remember the promises, right? Mm-hmm. The problem with me is I can remember getting caught. You've been working with youth as well, right? But I can remember one moment somebody came and asked me if I could come to a volleyball game, I think it was, or a soccer game or something. And I looked at the person and said, yeah, no, I think I can make that. While standing next to another kid that I had just said in a different school district, I had told them, hey, no, I could be at your game here, right? So you're looking at it, and the kid who I just said I could be there goes, well, wait a minute, right? Mm-hmm. Wait a second, right? How humbling it was to have to stop right at the second and go, oh, yeah, no, I can't do that because I just said, like, I could be over here. So a lot of times we, especially if we're people-pleasing in nature, we're constantly hearing ourselves say yes to things because we really do want to do it. We really do want to make people happy. But really, it's a pretty hard no. We can't do it.
See, and I'm so quick to forget when I said I'd be somewhere. I have to write it down. So my new phrase is, let me double check my calendar. But I would love to be there. I just need to double check my calendar.
Mm-hmm. So and again, it gives us a moment to stop and think and pray. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I say yes to something without ever really asking God, right? Like, hey, what do you think about this? Right?
Yeah.
Just again, not everything that's good is godly, right? But again, walk me through Jephthah in this story. He makes a deal with God, right? That he didn't need to make. It was already a done deal, by the way. Yeah. Like he didn't have to do it, but he did it anyway, right? How tempted are we? Because both of us have planned events and both of us have done things where you're like, man, God, I just need this to go well, right? I need you to make this go well. How tempting is it for us to make deals with God?
It's so tempting. But then it's convenient how when we're done, we tend to forget our end of the deal.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like TV shows, cartoons, comics, stuff like that. Where like, hey God, if you give me A, I'll do B, and then A just walks through the door and like, oh, forget we were even talking.
Yep.
But that's our nature, unfortunately. But God is serious about our word. Our words need to be taken seriously, and we need to mean what we say. And so we mean. And I way too often fail in that moment. I'm just something for me to work on, but it's so easy.
The end of this story is Jephthah's daughter, right? And she tells him that to keep his word, right? Mm-hmm. She says this, and it's in Judges chapter 11, verse 36. She said to him, my father, you have opened your mouth to the Lord. Do to me according to what has gone out of your mouth, now that the Lord has avenged you of your enemies, the Ammonites. What kind of young woman who just got told she has a death sentence says, you opened your mouth, you promised, do what you promised?
How I would love to be as faithful as her.
Yeah, right? Do we have a need to surround ourselves with people who are for us like this?
Yeah, it's definitely our need, but unfortunately, there are times where we surround ourselves with people that have their own motives.
Mm-hmm. Right, but when we're looking at this whole thing of the nonsense that's going around us, all people all over the place, who we surround ourselves with really matters, right? Are they a voice of reason, meaning godliness, right? This is a girl who had every right to throw a fit. Said, I didn't plan this as you, Dad. Like, what a terrible dad, right? Run away. But instead, she says, no, I want you to uphold your word, right? How do we teach young people? How do we teach people to not only keep their own word, but want, no matter how hard it is, want others to keep their word?
Well, it starts with keeping our word. Especially parents of these kids. I can tell you, I'm very fortunate to have the parents that I have and the grandparents that I had where if they said we were going to do something, we were going to do it. Very rarely did we not do something they said we were going to do. And then they would apologize and explain it.
Yeah.
But it was rare that we didn't do something that we said we were going to do. They learned at some point along the lines, they were taught how to say no.
Yeah.
And how to recognize what we can and cannot do. So I'm very fortunate for that. It starts at home.
It's so funny because we have a culture that is not built on this, right? We elect a politician. The politician tells us what they're going to do, right? We're very quick if we liked the politician to say, well, you didn't keep your promises.
Right.
But if it's a politician that we didn't vote for and they keep their promises, we're upset about it because we don't want them to keep their promises.
Yeah.
Like, so we live in this culture that's it's very like that, right? If it benefits us, we want people to keep their promises. But if it doesn't benefit us, we don't want. So, I mean, a lot of people out there, like, do you want a politician that is going to raise your taxes to keep his promise? The answer is, well, no. But then we're going to complain when he doesn't have integrity in something else, right? Like, we have to be careful because we want stuff for us, but we don't necessarily want it for other people, other situations.
We're a selfish nation.
No doubt about it. So I guess that would be my challenge to all of you listening to this nightly nonsense. It would be, hey, be careful, right? That you're not a situational promise keeper. How's that, right? That you are not wanting people to keep their promises in certain moments and demanding that they keep them in certain moments. You know, that makes you look just as inconsistent as they do, right? You should want people to commit to things and actually keep their promises. Do the things that they said they were going to do. So chew on that for a little bit because that should be convictional in nature as it has been in here as we think about what are the things that what are the promises that we would prefer that other people break, right? Like the police officer who pulls you over for speeding, who has promised to uphold the law, and then you want him to let you off. You're asking him to please break his promise, his commitment, his oath. You might want to be rethinking that the next time you do this. So I'm sure you guys have comments. Write them down below. Love to trash with you. Jason and I would be happy to do that at any time. We'll see you next time on Nightly Nonsense.